Hi there. This is Ron Rogers, and those of you who have been following my channel know that I'm a big Boeing supporter. I was actually worked there when I was furloughed from United Airlines as an engineer in flight test, and also I was lead engineer in the microwave technology group. And any of us, those of us who have been in aviation for a very long time, uh, just look at Boeing as the gold standard. It just is an absolutely wonderful company. And the Wall Street Journal had an article about its continued existence may be under question. Now, there's this big gala, Wings Club, annual Wings Club fundraising gala. Not something I would go to as just a mere pilot, but all the bigwigs, all the CEOs go to this. And Boeing bought 6 tables, and they, at the last minute, kind of just bailed out, and they gave the tickets away to the customers. The Boeing has a brand new CEO, and it's been a bit of a revolving door here because they just keep on going with issues and issues. And Kelly Ortberg is the new CEO. He wasn't there. He was working on the contract with the striking machinists who have shut down the company. And they have a tentative agreement. Don't know if it's going to be ratified, but tentative agreement that's going to give them a raise of 35% over 4 years life of the contract there. And Boeing has been losing an estimated $1 billion a month due to the shutdown. But even if this goes through and they settle it, as Wall Street Journal is saying, it still leaves Boeing in a very precarious position. And they report that a lot of industry insiders have been talking about a previously unthinkable thing, whether a breakup or a bankruptcy is in Boeing's future. Now, it's interesting. All these companies come together. I mean, in Wichita, we had the Stearman plant. Of course, Stearman was absorbed by Boeing, and a lot of these companies come together. That little symbol there with the circle and the jet, that comes from McDonnell Douglas when they had the merger with McDonnell Douglas, and that kind of is the heat of the problem. Okay. Well, they actually are exploring asset sales. Now, the new CEO, Ortberg, has said that Boeing has spread itself too thin and it must shrink. He wrote this in a memo to the employees. They're going to have to raise at least $10 billion in cash and slash thousands of jobs. And Boeing has had trouble, as we know, for a long time. The old 767 military tanker replacement, that's been in trouble for almost day one. And we go back to the Alaska Airlines plug, where the workers at the factory failed to replace critical bolts. Now, talk about that just a little bit more. And in July, they agreed to plead guilty to criminal charges that they misled air safety regulators before 2 deadly 737 MAX crashes. And the Starliner, well, how about that? They've got very serious problems with that, leaving the 2 astronauts stuck on the space station. And the trouble with Boeing is it's just not their problem. It reverberates through the whole industry. They've got all sorts of part manufacturers who now are left with idle workers and excessive inventory because they're not putting together airplanes. And Boeing has said it's going to have to cut back orders on the 737, 67, and the 777 jets. And fuselage maker Spirit Airlines said on Friday it would furlough 700 workers. Now, that's the Wichita, what used to be Wichita Boeing. When I worked for Boeing in Wichita, it was Boeing. And they sold it to Spirit, and of course they've been talking about they want to buy it back because they're having problems with Spirit, and quality control and stuff like that. So that spinoff wasn't such a brilliant idea, was it? Now I don't have an MBA. I'm an engineer, so I'm not the best one to comment on wise financial decisions. But I think most of us can kind of go that Boeing's got themselves into a crack here, and it has to do a lot with engineering. And Boeing said it's going to have to delay the launch of the 777X, and it's already years behind schedule. And Lufthansa CEO said, we need the airplane. The airlines plan on getting these airplanes, and a lot of the airlines have had to cut back on hiring and even threaten furloughs because they don't have the airplanes they anticipated having. And the airline commercial travel has been doing very well, and the airlines need the airplanes. All right, this sticker, if it's not Boeing, I'm not going. Yeah, well, there's some people now are saying if it is Boeing, I'm not going. And, this was just a gold standard. Boeing had a reputation that was unshakable. I mean, the 727. Okay, that is just a stalwart of aircraft design. And of course, it goes back a long time, and most of them are retired. That's me standing in front of a 727. Now you're probably going, oh, this is photoshopped. There's no carts, there's no jetway, all this stuff. Well, it's not. This is a mission where I went down to some little airport in Louisiana where they were sending these airplanes to be repainted, and I picked up a brand new repainted 727. So it's sitting there out on the ramp, and of course it's self-contained with the APU. I'm digressing here. So we don't really need any support to go out there, crank it up, and start it, which is a very nice aspect. And we don't need a jetway because it has these nice aft air stairs that at one time were suitable for jumping out of the airplane. DB Cooper wise, yeah, okay, still a digression. Anyway, but it is a great airplane. And of course, the 737, the best-selling aircraft in the world. And Boeing is a company that's not adverse to risk-taking. They really bet the company on the 747. A lot of people thought, how would you get this many people together at one time to go somewhere? Well, that was actually said of the Boeing 247, which I got to fly courtesy of Boeing way back when, because it had 10 seats. And where would you ever find 10 people that wanted to go to the same place at the same time? Well, commercial aviation has expanded since then, and they found a lot of people, but they didn't quite find enough very well to fill the 380, and it had other problems at that. But Boeing has had a good military history. I mean, who would have ever thought that the B-52 would be in existence this long? And actually, a improvement I made on the radar on this thing actually has been around for almost 50 years, which I think is fairly unbelievable. But they're finally upgrading that and the engines and that. We've got grandchildren who are flying the same airplanes that their grandfathers flew. I mean, just unbelievable. An amazing aircraft. And then we got this other company, McDonnell Douglas. Okay, well, they started out. Now, here's something interesting about them, of course, is that McDonnell Douglas. McDonnell used to be a company. Douglas used to be a company, separate. They joined together. Okay, all these people are coming together, which makes a big problem because there's not a lot of competition. If somebody like Boeing goes down, that puts a big dent in the aerospace industry and is actually a threat to national security. But the C-17, absolutely wonderful airplane. I got to fly it because they were evaluating trying to sell it commercially. There's a lot of issues with that, and I talk about that in one video. But it is just an amazing aircraft. And of course, McDonnell Douglas, they had amazing aircraft with the F-18. And I was chairman, as you probably know if you've been watching my channel, of the Airline Pilots Association National New Aircraft Evaluation and Certification Committee. That's me right down there. And the cool dude with the sunglasses and the not gray hair. I headed that committee, and we had a great time. Very good interaction with McDonnell Douglas. We gave them some recommendations on the aircraft design that they actually incorporated. And we actually, one of the test pilots in Orange there actually came and worked for us. We were getting to the point where I was thinking the manufacturers weren't going to let us come and fly their aircraft because we were stealing their test pilots. And of course, we had a fantastic relationship with Boeing. That's me in the far left up there on a flight evaluation of the 777-300. My airline now has that airplane. I never got to fly it in commercial service. I only flew it on flight test. But at the bottom right there, that's John Cashman, who was the chief pilot on the 777. He later became the head of flight test at Boeing, the highest flight test position there. And next to him is Frank Santoni, who was the chief test pilot on the 777-300. We had a great relationship with them. And I got to fly the aircraft on a number of missions. That's John Cashman there. And, it's funny. The new aircraft committee It combined with the Airworthiness and Performance Committee. It became Airworthiness Performance Evaluation Certification Committee. But they did this, in my opinion, ill-advised combination of ALPA committees. And all of this now is under the ADO committee, the Aircraft Design and Operations. And I actually heard a member of this committee say that they didn't have a good relationship with Boeing. And I'm going, what do you mean? You got to be kidding. You know, I left I left the committee with a fantastic relationship with Boeing. John Cashman and I we shared each other's personal cell phone numbers. He would call me asking me a question about, a certain design aspect of the aircraft and what I thought. And I could call him. In fact, one time I got him out of a meeting and I apologized for that, and he says, no, I kind of wanted to get out of it anyway. But, we could talk to each other, personal contacts back and forth. We had such a good relationship, and ALPA had such a good relationship with Boeing. And now they tell me that doesn't exist. Actually, we had a very good relationship with a lot of people because I developed with the committee the ability to do flight evaluations on the aircraft and publish them, and that opened the door to get us flight evaluation, something that never occurred before. And I wrote some 30 plus articles on various things. And in fact, wrote a defense of there was a pilot-induced oscillation issue with the 777 that had service. One of these bad rumors, how that can start. And I basically wrote an article that says, no, it's not an issue. Here's where the thing developed, and it developed early in flight test, and they put a 3 hertz filter in there, and we actually saw it on one of our flight test missions. I talk about that in other videos, but I'm not Italian. I still use my hands, but anyway, Irish and German. But anyway, these things developed and they were corrected. But we had a great relationship with Boeing. And both Boeing and Airbus were very instrumental in letting me do actually flight test on their aircraft to do various flight control evaluations. And Boeing actually gave me this beautiful 777 model and the little plaque. I was team leader on the Working Together group where we brought the pilots in as part of the design. What stuff should we have on this aircraft? And the pilot input was very influential. And when I won the Best Technical Paper of the Year award, Boeing actually invited me to set up at their table, which was right in front, so I didn't have to walk far to get the award, instead of normally where I'm sitting way in the back, because it kind of goes by, who's most important and stuff like that. But anyway, had a great relationship with them. And then the McDonnell Douglas thing came along. And a lot of the engineers and the people I talked to, they call this the reverse merger. And the McDonnell Douglas bean counters came in. Okay, and this is, a lot of people feel, the beginning of the demise of the Boeing company. And I hope it's not, but this is where a lot of people think a lot of the problems developed. And we had the MCAS issue with the 737s. And not only, apparently, does ALPA not have a good relationship with Boeing now, but even their own test pilots were getting locked out of meetings of the engineers. And I'm an engineer, but you got to have the pilot aspect too. Engineers don't always know how to design flight control systems without pilot inputs, and the pilots were not allowed in the meetings. And then some of them that had knowledge of it, and that's not good too, they kind of covered it up. And that was a whole court case, and somebody got off pretty easy there, but at least Boeing has finally admitted guilt to these terrible accidents. And of course, everybody knows about the door plug, or the you get to have a nice view of the outside there, a lot bigger window. And part of the whole thing with this, these things aren't terribly simple, but the people working on this aircraft are under a lot of pressure to get things done in a very timely fashion. And it used to be that Boeing had the attitude that you do it right. Okay, sometimes that's not the most efficient, but you do it right. Well, the bean counters will go, no, you got so long to do the job, so hurry up and stuff like that. And, these people are under pressure, and sometimes steps get missed and bolts get left out. Like I said, Boeing had a great space history, too. The Saturn V first stage there, at one time the most powerful rocket ever built. And I actually, when I worked for Boeing, I sat next to an engineer who was involved in that design because, it's one huge fuel tank. And on one of the very first missions, they got into this, and I digress. They got into this pogo issue where the aircraft was actually bouncing vertically like a pogo stick because the fuel was sloshing in the tanks. And this acceleration and then the sloshing, the guys were having a hard time even reading the instruments in the command capsule. And of course, these guys are cool test pilots, cool astronauts. They weren't going to abort the mission or anything. They just wrote it out, and then they ended up putting some baffles in the fuel tanks that solved the problem for later flights. Okay, now we're back up to the Starliner. Okay, give me a break here. We leave astronauts in orbit because Boeing can't make a good space capsule anymore. And, Elon Musk, who's rather an eccentric, and most geniuses are rather eccentric, but he's been doing one heck of a job. And you know, making Boeing looks at upstarts like that, or did, and kind of laughs. Those guys will never be able to do this. And now they're making Boeing look very bad, and just the problems with the capsule are just unbelievable for the quality that Boeing used to espouse. It's just, they can't win on this whole thing. So we hope, I think everybody hopes, that Boeing doesn't explode, self-implode, destroy itself, break up. It's not been terribly uncommon for companies to bring all sorts of things together and then realize it's just too much, and they have to separate the divisions out again. That seems to be the CEOs make money when they put it together, and they make money when they take it apart. But for the good of the country and the good of the industry, Boeing needs to survive, and I certainly hope that they do. And to see an article in the Wall Street Journal that brings up the possibility that they may disintegrate is just shocking, and I hope everybody finds that to be the case. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Thanks for watching.